What is up? Welcome into the Monday edition
Victory
of Pushing
Monday.
the Pile. Victory Monday for some of us.
Go Bears.
I've had better weekends. I'm Mike Renner. He's Kyle Long. It's Victory Monday for some because I had maybe the worst weekend I've ever had as a sports fan.
I didn't hit you
a
up
regular
all weekend
season
because of this. I didn't want to text you. I didn't know what kind of mood you were in.
It was just like I couldn't actually believe it because Jordan Love getting hurt. It's happened before week one. I go back 2013. It was I think against you guys. No, 2014 against you guys.
Yep.
Bears.
Yep.
The shoulder or whatever. What year was that?
Was it Corey Wooten bringing down our guy Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers?
Week one. It kind of just like gut punch. And so that night, Friday night, I was like, oh. But then Saturday to have Northern Illinois upset Notre Dame at home.
Huge Notre Dame fan, by the way, and Packers fan. So great weekend for me getting to make fun of him. And also just a great weekend for Bears fans because our quarterback didn't throw for 100 yards and we still won the football game.
Well, they're used to that quarterback not throwing for 100 yards. Not used to the winning the football game part, though. We have a jam-packed show for you guys, though. We are going to be reviewing all the games that we saw. Didn't sleep much. Reviewing all the games that we saw over the course of the weekend. We're going to put them into tiers. A tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3 based off of how good we thought that game was. And we're also going to be giving you guys this first off the ball segment as well. Before that, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And we had some fun news to wake up to yesterday.
Wild. I was in studio for some of this.
When Tyreek Hill, I saw a clip on Twitter, wake up, log on my phone. He is in handcuffs on the side of the road. Calais Campbell is like 20 feet behind him, talking to cops as well. No one knows what's going on.
Let my man go.
Still don't really know what's going on. But Tyreek Hill then goes for over 100 yards in that Miami Dolphins game.
Yeah, a guy who needs no added motivation to go out there and play the game of football at a high rate of speed. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I'm not sure what the issue was that got him detained, stopped, handcuffed, put on the ground, roughed up a little bit. But we all saw the videos, and thank God for camera phones because we wouldn't have that stuff. It's like the Scheffler stuff. We wouldn't have seen it. And luckily, Drew Rosenhaus and his teammates were there to come to his rescue and get him back on the football field. It's just, what's more NFL than the star player getting detained right before the game? You don't know if he's going to play or not.
Scotty Scheffler-esque. But the fact that Rosenhaus was there was perfect Rosenhaus. I mean, if you're a player looking for an agent and the agent is literally on the side of the road while you're getting arrested, talking to the cops, how do you not want to sign that guy coming out of college?
Yeah, and he was also great talking to Melanie Collins from CBS on the sideline, and she did a great job, really professional operation there. And for Tyreek, obviously we're going to get more answers here as the week goes on, but he was able to play, and it was good for the Dolphins.
Rosenhaus saying Tyreek wants to be a cop was ultimate.
Okay, Tyreek said he wants to be a cop too, in a tank top and just muscles popping out. I think I want to be a cop too.
All right, Dak Prescott, the other big news from yesterday, 4 years, $240 million. Cowboys go out and get the W. I think a lot of Cowboys fans had a nervous offseason, nervous few weeks here. Are they going to get CD done? Are they going to get Dak done? Well, they get them both and then they blow out the Browns.
Yeah, they get it both done. And I want to touch on the Dak Prescott signing. And here's what I think about Dak Prescott as an offensive lineman. And I got strong feelings about quarterbacks. There's not anybody in the National Football League who handles the pressure, the media, the team better than Dak Prescott. I truly believe that. And there's no more pressure-packed position in sports than being the quarterback for the team that has a star on their helmet. Dak Prescott has been exemplary throughout, and for him to go and get that contract right before the season is great. He's earned it. Obviously, getting CeeDee Lamb signed is huge, and to your point, they went on the road in Cleveland, and they whooped some ass against the Browns, and it wasn't necessarily close at all for the entirety of the football game.
That was a tough one for Cleveland. We'll get to that one and a bunch more here in a little bit, but the last thing in the first off the ball segment we wanted to get to, NFL kickoffs. Around the NFL, we got a first taste of it. We had some big returns. I thought it added a little zest to it. We had our first too short kickoff penalty, which I think is legist. I think if you have a small leg and you can't get it to 20 yards, the NFL shouldn't be penalizing you for it. But again, we saw that this weekend. And we saw the Bills have 12 people on the field for the first time.
We found a spot for you on the field, Mike. You can hold the football when they kick it, and then you can sprint to the sideline.
I might not get off the side of the field in time.
2024 Rudy. They're going to remake it.
But 12 men on the field. What did you think of the kickoff, though? I thought it's like
Kickoffs are fun. I complained about it all week. Throughout the preseason, we saw, really no returns. And then once the season started, I asked Jay Feely on the broadcast yesterday, are we going to get to see some returns today or throughout the course of the season when the wind is blowing and when the weather turns bad in some of these cities? And sure enough, we saw a bunch of these kickoff returns go for big explosive plays yesterday. That's what fans are looking for. That's what we're looking for on the couch at home.
My favorite kickoff play that I saw yesterday was Zach Ertz. Been in the league, like dozen years?
11 years now, yeah.
Him, after the kick, just out of habit, backing away as soon as the ball's kicked, where you have to freeze in place. Line. And so I believe he got flagged for that. So just out of muscle memory, he starts backing up to go, and then he's like, oh, shoot, I messed this up. Got flagged for it. So I enjoyed it as well. I thought it added an element that is just was missing for the past few years.
Yep.
And obviously didn't lead to more offense, though, unfortunately. As we'll see here.
We're going to see that thing change throughout the course of the year, too, man. We're going to, and I asked Cower about this yesterday, and I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm kicking it out of the end zone every single time. Well, sometimes you're not going to have that luxury, and the guys are going to be able to catch it. And that's when the magic happens, baby.
The magic didn't happen, unfortunately, too often in terms of points being on the scoreboard, but we'll get to that here in just a second after a quick break.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
All right, let's get to it. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Our Tier 1 games, we're going to get a full O-line, D-line breakdown from Kyle over here. We're going to get me emptying my notebook as I stayed up all night and watched the All-22 of every single one of these games. And we're going to get the stats to know from those. Tier 2, we're just going to get the empty the notebook segment, stats to know. And Tier 3, we're just going to empty the notebook. But those games, I may not have watched all the way until the fourth quarter. Some of them did not warrant it. Let's kick back to Thursday night, though, where the Ravens go to Kansas City. Probably the game of the weekend in terms of just drama.
It was fun.
You had Isaiah Likely's feet being just one size too big on that last play of the game, touchdown out of bounds. Chiefs win 27-20, cover the 3-point favorite, and the game goes over that 46.5 total. What did you think of the O-line, D-line player?
You know, a lot of questions were answered this past week, and obviously the question that I didn't want to get answered is this penalty going to be called a lot? And it was called 5 times, I believe, on the Ravens offensive line. Illegal formation, obviously, we're talking about the tackles being off the ball. That's going to change a lot of things schematically and technically for these offensive tackles, and it remains to be seen whether or not they're going to continue to call it. But if you want to talk O-line, D-line performance, I'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs and their ability to dominate in space with their center, Creed Humphrey. You look at the play with Xavier Worthy running around the right side, his first touch of the football game, his first touch of his NFL career, he scored a touchdown. He did it behind a convoy of red, a sea of red. And that is just Andy Heck putting a point of emphasis on, guys, be athletes out in space. Go get guys covered up and finish them. Not only are they getting on guys, but it's Creed Humphrey and all his homies getting these dudes on the ground. That's what allows an 8-yard gain to turn into a potential 40 or a touchdown. And that's what we saw from Kansas City. Kingsley Suamataia, we talked a lot about him this preseason. I loved a lot of what I saw from him. There were times technically where sometimes he drifted a little bit too far, but the one thing that you can't teach is inside hand strength in the pass protection. And when you get latched onto these defensive ends, these edge rushers, the ability to go from punch to then taking that right arm in and putting your inside elbow on your rib cage. That's a fulcrum. You know what I'm saying? That's a really strong position to be in. I love his hips. His feet are balanced, and he is strong as an ox. He's a really great pickup for the Kansas City Chiefs. He looked awesome. Trey Smith looked to be in postseason Super Bowl form, looking over Jawan Taylor's inside shoulder. Jawan Taylor has the ability. Obviously, he wants to get off the football. And a lot of people were saying he false starts a lot. He does a lot of cheating. But you know what? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So, Jawan, until they put you in jail for it, continue to do it. And here's the reason why he does do it. He wants to get these edge rushers covered up because he knows when that inside move comes, He's got big 65 Trey Smith in his inside pocket, ready to unload on somebody's rib cage. It is a culture in Kansas City. It is an O-line culture. I love it. And you look on the other side of the field with the Baltimore Ravens, and you've got a guy by the name of Lamar Jackson who can do everything. He can win you football games against all odds, but sometimes the odds are just a little bit too much. And he still almost won in Kansas City.
Yeah.
But the offensive line, Falele at right guard, the center, the right tackle, there was a lot of issues. I saw guys really non-committal in the pass protection. When you're going against Chris Jones, you can't just write it off as a loss pre-snap. You have to go swing your sword. You got to go put your sword in that dragon, even if it slows him down a half of a step. That's what you have to do. One thing I saw from Chris Jones was the spinner look. I saw him win in half a second on the right guard. Next snap, he goes over on the left side, and I'm screaming at my TV like, Chris, stay there. Stay on the fish. You're in the fish market on the right side of the offensive line. You need to do that. It's going to be a really long year for the Baltimore Ravens in pass protection. I think the strong suit will be running the football, obviously, and we've seen that from the Ravens before, but I have really, really big concerns about that protection.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest takeaways for me. It was just Ravens O-line is in trouble, and I don't see it changing quickly. You had Roger Rosengarten, the rookie right tackle, swapping with Patrick McCarry, his very first snap. Chris Jones kicks his butt, first sack, like just right at the snap. And to mention a highlighted play that I wrote down here in my notes that we might get to, but third quarter, 1:30, 3rd and 3, Lamar and Linderbaum sliding left. You see them calling left slide. Chris Jones gets up because he's a 3-tech on that side over the left guard, gets up, tells Tershawn Wharton, go to the left side, and he goes to the right side, gets a one-on-one with Daniel Fale. It was a fantastic play. That's just like vet stuff.
Really smart. And I'm glad that you brought up Tershawn Wharton, and they call him Turk because if you watch the film, Turk, his legs are like turkey legs. I guess his mama used to call him turkey leg. That's why they call him Turk. But the dude is a pass rush specialist, and he gets a lot of one-on-ones with Chris Jones having all those resources allocated towards his way. And to your point, when you have a vet like Chris Jones who's really savvy, he hears the slide, he can pick up on the communication with the O-line and says, switch with me. I'm going to go win on that one-on-one.
All right, let me get to my empty the notebook here. I had a ton of notes on this Thursday Night Football game. Run through them as quickly as possible here. Starting with the helmet to belt. Enforcement stinks. Making the Thursday Night Football opener ref show is just one of the dumbest things NFL can do.
That's how we're saying it. Okay.
Helmet to belt, because that's what they're doing. I went and watched Arizona Cardinals game, very first drop back pass of the game. Paris Johnson's about a foot behind the center.
Yep.
And I'm just like, they didn't throw a flag.
Call it.
What are we doing? What are we doing if we can't enforce it? We're going to enforce it on the biggest show of the season and not on an average Sunday game where it's like that's when you can actually start to get people to obey the rule. And they didn't. So
they had refs at the Ravens training camp that told Ronnie Stanley he was okay in his current alignment. The guy's been blocking the same way for 9 years. He's an all-pro tackle. He knows what he's doing.
He didn't all of a sudden.
He's not
changed his set depth.
Yeah.
Especially because it's like the Chiefs had these speed rushers that you have to adjust.
I digress.
Okay. We do too. All right. Other notes here. Bolton can't cover. Liability they have to address at the linebacker position, and almost took out their best linebacker in Leo Chanel. Cannot believe how good Isaiah Likely is as a run blocker. He forklifted George Karlaftis as a 6-tech on the backside of outside zone and had him 5 yards down the football field. An undersized tight end. He had 12 targets. That's more than Mark Andrews had in any single game last season. Impressive stuff. Zay has some Dante Hall to him. He was fun to watch in that game. In space. Tag national team I wrote down here. Spags played cover 2 with Drew Tranquil, linebacker, in a deep half alignment. That was pretty dope to watch.
He can do a little bit of everything.
Drew Tranquil is very versatile. The free agent signing of him last year was one of Brett Veach's best moves. Travis Jones, overpowered Creed Humphrey on a rep, overpowered Trey Smith on a rep, overpowered Joe Tooney on a rep. That's a good signal for the third-year defensive tackle breaking out. I wrote Carson Steele could only be a football player or a male porn star with that name.
True.
Or an 80s movie villain, actually, I wrote at the end after that.
Yep, an Arnold movie villain. One
of the worst games of Kyle Hamilton's career. Out of control too many times. And I think he blew the coverage on that one touchdown. You had, I can't say for certain, but you had the other 2 safeties, I believe Marcus Williams and I'm blanking on the other one now, going to kind of a cover 2 look. And at the catch, you had both Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Williams look directly at Kyle Hamilton. So I think he was to blame for that coverage.
You can always tell
on the Xavier where they
palms up or the looks are the point.
Yeah. Leo Chanel deserves a shout out. That guy's versatility. He rushes off the edge for them. He spied and took down Lamar Jackson numerous times, and he plays the run like a man. that guy is key.
He played like a Florida man in that football game. He did a little hunting. He did a little fishing. He did a little cooking. Florida man, Leo Chanel.
And then I have to say at the end, Lamar went 0 for 3 when it mattered most. He had 3 shots. 3, I don't want to say easy. I mean, nothing's easy in the NFL. But 3 guys that a good throw is a touchdown, and they tie it there at the end. He didn't get any of them. All right, stats to know. Lamar Jackson, 9 scrambles in that game. That tied his career high. He looked way quicker to scramble.
Skinny Lamar is great.
And I think it's 1 skinny Lamar and 2 that offensive line in front of him. Kyle Hamilton, 3 missed tackles, the most of any game in his career. And then the one I mentioned earlier, Isaiah Likely's 12 targets or more than any Mark Andrews game. Him being a focal point of that offense is real. He was getting open at will. They're going to do a lot of 2 tight end stuff with him and Mark Andrews. So very fun. Looking forward to
a lot of quick options for Lamar Jackson.
100%.
And with the state of that O-line, it's going to have to be that.
Have to be. All right. Next game, go to Friday night, where it was another tier 1 game. Packers 29, Eagles 34. Came down to the end, and Jordan Love tears his MCL at the end. Second, I guess it was third to last play of the game. Jalen Carter kind of rolls up on him. He was walking afterwards. I talked to my dad, orthopedic surgeon. He said, if he's walking like that close afterwards, you lean probably closer to the 3 weeks than the 6 weeks that was reported. But the Packers have been historically very cautious with injuries. So TBD on that. Either way, Malik Willis did not look ready to play.
It's his left knee?
Left knee.
Left knee. So I had an MCL sprain, a really bad one when I was in junior college. And of course, they just shot me up with lidocaine and got me back out there. But one thing I do remember was the feeling of instability and not trusting that knee, not being able to put the weight in it. For me, it was my right knee, and I was playing left tackle. So it was my inside knee. For him, it's going to be his landing knee when he throws. I'm not sure.
Well, he throws always the fadeaways.
The fadeaway stuff. So he could be off this leg a lot throwing the football with some confidence. But the MCL, it's a trust thing. It's all about how you're feeling. You're not necessarily going to be in dire straits physically from a structural standpoint. But look, the trust is huge.
All right. Give me the trench take. I don't want to hear it because I know what it's going to be, but give it to me straight.
Here's the trench take. Jalen Hurts and these Eagles put themselves in far too many crappy situations at the beginning of the football game. And Vic Fangio's defense, the front, who was, relatively unproven and a lot of doubts up there. Obviously, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they had to step up to the plate and be the big men at home, with Fletcher Cox gone, BG still in the game. I really liked Vic Fangio's defense, the way they played, but the line of scrimmage, it's still, at the end of the day, it's Mekhi Becton, it's Lane Johnson at right guard and right tackle. The double teams were awesome. Cam Jurgens did a really good job. Obviously, we talked about the tush push in the preseason, how it wasn't going to happen with the same effectiveness, and we saw that. But one thing that Cam Jurgens did a really good job of was getting out in space, able to trap some of these edge run defenders and get to the next level. He looks really fluid and athletic moving. I can see why Jason Kelce handpicked this guy. But the offensive line, the retooled O-line, obviously Mailata and Johnson, but the retooled O-line, particularly in the center and the right guard positions, did a really good job. Mekhi Becton, obviously a career offensive tackle. He's forced to play with lower pad level, but I think that him and Lane Johnson being on the same page is going to be a massive backside double team for Saquon Barkley all year long. And obviously we saw Saquon have a ton of success. But for Jalen Hurts, he's going to feel comfortable back there with his guys in front of him.
Yeah, I said this about Jurgens. Yeah, obviously the failed tush push, the 2 bad snaps.
The snaps is
easy.
It's going to get figured out.
That's going to stick in people's minds. But as a pure blocker at the center position, he looked good.
Really good.
He was. So no panic button on the Kelce to Jurgens transition, in my opinion. What did you think on the other side, ball Packers O-line?
I think you kind of get fooled by the way that Jordan Love throws the football. Sometimes you feel like the protection's bad because of the launch angle or his back foot. I think that's just kind of where he's comfortable in his sweet spot. And obviously you've watched a lot more Jordan Love than I have. But I think this offensive line held up pretty well. Obviously there were some mismatches inside. Anytime you play against a guy like Jalen Carter, you're going to have mismatches. But I like Matt LaFleur's protection plan, and I'd like to see them run the football a little bit more. I think you get more comfortable with your run fits as the game goes along. And when you got a guy like Josh Jacobs, you can really rely on him. But look, not a ton of star power out there on the offensive line, but a unit that has learned to play with one another. I like Green Bay, but it's going to be tough if you don't have Jordan Love out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be damn near impossible. Let's be real. If they don't have Jordan Love, especially with what they did at the backup quarterback situation, bring in a guy who's been there a week now.
Yep. It's not even like Malik Willis was there all offseason and we still have doubts. It's like this dude showed up last week.
He can't even run a Hail Mary, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, this is good. This is one play he may know how to run.
Well, that's the one play, if anything, the dude runs like a running back and has a cannon.
Throw it deep.
Hail Mary is his bread and butter, dude. He should be a Hail Mary expert, and he couldn't even get one off. All right, my notebook for the game. The amount of slips and tumbles off the screen that we didn't even see, that weren't even involved, was insane. It was even worse than the Super Bowl, at least on par with what we saw in that Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, to the point where I am not taking anything away from this game, right? I am not taking big takeaways. If you're worried about the Eagles defense, worried about the Packers defense, Eagles pass rush, whatever, this was not football. NFL needs to answer for why they keep messing up easy things like this in their first two primetime games. Some other takeaways, though. I said just no takeaways, but I have a few more takeaways. Zach Bond had the best game I've seen from him in his career.
Baller.
Vet linebacker theory, through the signed vet linebackers, signed guys who have seen it. Because Zach Bond has seen it, and he was demolishing blocks left and right.
He played the game like a guy named Jarrell Freeman, who came to the Bears in the mid-20 teens from the Colts.
From Canada.
And he was an absolute dog. I think he went to the Colts, and then he went to the Bears. Mm-hmm. And he was a dog. And it reminded me a lot of what Zach Bond was doing in the football game. Instinctive, flying around, great tackler. You know who else is a great tackler? Jordan Mailata is a great tackler. The tackle he had over the middle of the field after the interception was unbelievable. And, the first thing I did was pull up his rugby highlights. The guy not only carried the ball, but he's a great tackler in open space and a huge athlete. Great job by them.
Yeah, that was impressive. I had Christian Watson still refusing to fight through contact. Could have drawn DPI on the Quinion vertical. Could have avoided C.J. Gardner-Johnson on the end zone over route that went off the edge of his fingertips. Romeo Doubs looks much improved, though, for the Green Bay Packers wide receiving core. And also his OPI in the touchdown should have been an OPI. It was less than 1 yard downfield. You can block less than 1 yard down the football field and on the outside. I think LTC and RG could be problems for the Packers moving forward. I thought Morgan outplayed Ryan at right guard. Both outplayed Myers, though. And Walker will be a holding machine.
So I wrote one note about Rasheed Walker. He needs to learn how to butt block. And if you know what a butt block is, it's like you ever see, in basketball, you box people out. You box them out. You get your butt in there and you go hip to hip. Sometimes as an O-lineman, you lose the rep initially, and you need to find a way to get the guy blocked or run by without using your hands and the holding you're talking about. It's the butt block. That's what it is. You're shielding guys off. You can run these dudes off. That's a way to have, accident cleanup, the mitigation of some of the issues.
But he cleans up issues with a outstretched arm and a fully grasped hand, because he had 2 holding penalties in this one and could have had a few more from what I saw. Jalen Carter, I was hoping actually for a little bit more. I mean, he still has reps, right? But his technique is still looser than I would have hoped for a guy going into year 2. Still a little bit wild. I thought we would see Chris Jones-esque leap into that stratosphere.
That's a tough leap.
It is, but that's
Olympic high jump leap.
What I was hoping for. We did not see it.
Jordan Davis looked pretty good. As the game went on, I could see that he was starting to get a little bit tired.
Let's say Jordan Davis motor. I wrote motor runs cold.
Yeah,
has the reps, but the motor runs cold. Big dude.
Drive starters. He gives you tremendous effort in the first few plays of the drive. But as somebody who was about his weight when I played, it is taxing on the big dog. So you're gonna have to find a way to rotate him in and out, keep him fresh, because he is at his best when he's fresh.
Matt LaFleur, 4th and 5, down 31-26, 8 minutes left, kicking the field goal, was a minus 7.1 win percentage difference according to Ben Baldwin's 4th down bot. That's one that you got to go for in today's day and age. It's just you have to be more aggressive in those situations. I think that's one that they want back in retrospect. Kellen Moore, Eagles opposite side of the ball. He might need to rethink some of this 2 tight end stuff. They had Grant Calcaterra playing 36 snaps, and he blew up multiple run plays. I'm not sure what good it does having him on the football field. I did not see a plus blocker out of him to do so. I thought Hafley had some nice well-timed blitzes from defensive backs. I think they got more pressure via that than they did their front 4, because the Eagles' run game is a house. You cannot go light boxes against them. Saquon behind this is just going to have a year.
That's going to be the the story of the season. How many weeks can we see Saquon Barkley carry the load like this? How many weeks can we see him get, 20 touches? I think that's going to be the story of the Eagles this year. And you talked about Half's defense. I'm looking at Jair Alexander. I'm just laughing because sometimes he gets beat like a drum. And then sometimes he just happens to have this set of eyes in the back of his head where he can float into the picky
in the end zone.
Inverted buzz coverage where he's sprinting backwards knowing the ball is going to be there. It's like when you do a user pick in Madden and I get pissed. It's because
that's what it was.
That's exactly what it was.
Completely came off his guy
here and knew exactly where the ball was going to go.
That was amazing. But he did allow over 100 yards for the first time since 2022. Elkton Jenkins, Zach Tom, Lane Johnson all didn't allow pressure. And Zach Bond, 7 stops in this one. Quay
Zach
Walker
Tom did a great job.
Zach Tom did have a good day at right tackle. Going up against, what's his face? Who's the new addition that the Eagles fans were upset didn't make much. Bryce Huff. But he went against Zach Tom. Zach Tom looked like a Pro Bowler in this game. So there you have it. There's that.
More 50s in the O-line room.
Oh, yeah, dude. 50 is a sweet look.
It's a throwback.
Right
It's a throwback.
All right, next game up into Tier 1. No surprise here. Texans, Colts. This one felt like a heavyweight bout.
Yeah, Texans,
there was
Colts.
Sick plays.
I wrote down a naval war because there's just cannons all over the field. It's C.J. Stroud, it's Anthony Richardson. And from the beginning of the game, you could see that these guys got the green light to throw that thing as far as they can. And Anthony Richardson made one of the most impressive throws I've ever seen. He made 2 throws, but the first one, in my opinion, is one of the best throws I've ever seen. Like under duress, almost folded his legs with the pressure, and then you see the ball just shoot out of his chest, 65 yards in stride. That's awesome. I mean, he's an extension of that running back room and the O-line room because he is so tough. For him to be able to get out in space and make guys miss, I love the things that Shane Steichen allows him to do. And we asked, is this going to be the same Anthony Richardson that we saw last year? Is he going to get down? He said, no, I'm not changing. Well, it doesn't look like he changed much, and he looks pretty damn healthy to me. I love Anthony Richardson, but for C.J. Stroud, it was finding all his targets. Not a ton of volume for Stephon Diggs, but the touchdown in the red area. He's going to be such a great add for this team. I thought that both teams at times struggled to pick up games. I thought that throughout the course of the week, one thing that stood out to me across all slates was TEs, ETs, and 3-man games can't be practiced until you practice it in the game.
Yeah.
You can rep it all you want with the other O-linemen in practice and individual period, but these guys are coming for your hip. They're coming to ear-hole you, and they're trying to get their buddy free. Week 1 was a great opportunity for these linemen throughout the course of the league to get comfortable with that.
Yeah, well, that was one of the biggest takeaways too, just watch tape, was if you're not trying to create havoc up front in your pass rushes in terms of either stunts, slanting, sim pressures, that sort of thing, I just think you're missing out right now because so many offensive lines looked unprepared in this one. What did you think about this Texans offensive line, though? Because me watching them, this looked like a much improved unit, specifically Kenyon Green, the left guard. He was injured all last year. Terrible rookie season, but he looks like the first rounder that he was back in 2020.
It looks like a group that has continuity. It looks like a team that has played together, and they don't have a ton of world beaters up there. But I will say that when you've got a guy like C.J. Stroud, you understand the importance of the moment. Guys are that much more locked into the protection plan. The details are really dialed in. C.J. had an opportunity all day. He was back there at times cooking some weenies and beans, but there's other times throughout the course of the game when DeForest just does what he does and gets in your lap. So it's not like they were without sacks or pressures. But at the end of the day, you want your quarterback, C.J. Stroud, to feel comfortable. And he's obviously such a talent. If he's comfortable, the entire show goes on, baby. The entire show goes on. And I saw a little bit of that for Indianapolis as well. But this is can't miss TV. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. I can't wait for the next iteration of this game.
Yeah, to see this for like a decade straight. AFC South is back. They're back. All right, my notebook here. Rolling through it. C.J. Stroud completing a 4th down pass from his knees early on.
Yep.
I have a theory.
Forgot about that.
I have a theory that you can tell a lot about a quarterback with how they deal with slips, stumbles, fumbles.
He slipped, hit, got up, and threw it.
Yeah, the guys that do that, those are the different ones. Those are the guys that have a little bit, you ain't seeing Will Levis do that. I'll just say that.
We're going to talk about that one.
Joe Mixon, a very underrated addition to this offense.
He's fresh, bro.
And he's scheme versatile and can catch out of the backfield. Like, they can use him in every way. They could not, they could not feature Motor Singletary last year as a pass catcher. And this O-line difference in the run blocking that he has here versus what he had in Cincinnati, I mean, it set him back. He looks like he's back at Oklahoma. Colts went bend, don't break all day. That was a good strategy. I think you're going to see a lot of teams do that to this Texans team, and that's why Joe Mixon's such a big
force him to be perfect
because too high. They're sitting in too high, just saying run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Well, Texans were able to run the ball. I thought Latu when he went up against Tunsil, he got Tunsiled, but when he up against everyone else, he looked good. So good reps, just don't face Laramie Tunsil. Basically going forward. Kwity Paye was probably the best game I've seen from him. He looks like he's kind of taken a next step in his development. He had a handful of nice reps against Titus Howard, former first rounder, going into year 4 now. CJ Stroud had 2 of the best throws I saw all weekend. We mentioned the Richardson one, but the 3rd and 11 conversion was unbelievable in Nico Collins. Literally, that was the only position that ball can be put in to be caught. That one was great, and they had another one to the sidelines that could have gotten him in scoring position.
He can really redline that thing and get it a couple more miles an hour when he wants to. That's one thing I love about him. He layers the football really well. He's got the right amount of touch, but when he has to do the 44 Magnum straight shot, one-shot kill, he can throw it in there.
Yes, he can. The 4th and 2 call to go for it on the 2-yard line, under 5 minutes remaining, up by 2, cojones. That one deserves a shout-out. I just said Matt LaFleur didn't do it, and they probably regretted it. They did it. They scored. Colts came down and scored a touchdown. They would have been behind the 8 ball if that happened and they didn't go for it. So hats off to D'Amico Ryans for that call. Adonai Mitchell. My God, if you flip on the all-22 of this guy, he was open. 6 targets. Only had 1 catch. Anthony Richardson missed him a few times. And now, admittedly, one of them, I think Adonai Mitchell ran the wrong route. But Derek Stingley was squatting on a hitch route and he just ran to go.
Yep.
And Anthony Richardson overthrew him in the end zone. But if Anthony Richardson would have hit him on all the times he was open down the football field, 3 times that Richardson missed him.
Like
144 yards of air yards, 2 touchdowns that he would have missed. He was cooking those corners on the outside. Definitely a name to watch.
You can't miss those against a divisional opponent at home.
And that's the thing. Richardson, the accuracy is objectively bad. I mean, one of the worst I saw all year. He went 9-19, and I think only like 3 of those were not via accuracy. So he was missing. He was whiffing. But if that comes on, he is such a house. His pocket presence is so good. This Colts offense has high potential.
He fires me up. When I watch him, he fires me up. There's only a handful of quarterbacks that really get me excited. You know, I think about Baker Mayfield running and laying his hat into a linebacker and being excited. That gets me pumped up. A guy like Herbert with a big arm and you protect him long enough, he can get that thing down the field, Mahomes. But I'm putting this guy, Anthony Richardson, in there in that category of just freak shows that you're excited to go block for because you can't wait to see the show in the front row.
It's like early Josh Allen, right? And then Josh Allen got more accurate. If we see that same trajectory from Anthony Richardson, top 3 quarterback.
And we're still going to get to see the freak show, Anthony Richardson, moving on in his career because Josh Allen's still doing it.
Exactly. So some stats to know. Joe Mixon in this game went over his expected rush yards. That's the next gen stat, expected rush yards. On 58.6% of his carries. That was the highest of anyone all week. Last year, Devin Singletary was only 37.4%, so a great day from Joe Mixon at the office. Anthony Richardson's average depth of target in this game was a cool 16.5 yards down the football field, 5 yards farther than any other quarterback in the NFL. And the 2 farthest completions of week 1 both came in this game. Anthony Richardson to Alec Pierce and CJ Stroud to Nico Collins. What a game. Definitely deserving of the tier 1. And hopefully one we'll see, for the next decade.
I mean, that's what we're going to get. And it's going to be awesome, dude. It's going to be so much fun every time these guys play.
All right, next tier 1 game. Arizona Cardinals, Buffalo Bills. This one lived up to the hype that we kind of hyped it up because I said there was going to be points in this one. 34-28. Bills don't quite cover, but the over does hit. And Josh Allen was, Josh Allen and the Bills offensive line was the Bills offensive line.
Yeah, dude. It was so apparent to me from the beginning of this game. And I got drafted by the Bills O-line coach, Aaron Cromer, in 2013. And I know the technique beyond the shadow of a doubt that he's teaching. He's teaching his guys to stay square and make first significant touch. He wants his offensive linemen to play with length and strength. And obviously he wants his guards to help his tackles. But from the very jump, it was clear to me that all of these offensive linemen are on the same page technically. You watch some O-lines throughout the course of the Sunday slate and you say, all these guys are doing different things. The Bills do it the same way every single time. That's why they have success. I think the story of the game was Von Miller turning it on at the end of the game. And obviously Kelvin Beachum in there at right tackle because they're without their starter. Kelvin Beachum, a veteran player who knows his landmarks, who understands the game, a really bright guy. But sometimes you just get Von Miller, like our guy Latu getting Larry
Russo
Tunsil.
too.
Yeah, Russo got home, was it 3 times? 2 or 3 times?
And
I think about two sacks for Russo. He went up and under one time. And then I think about the 3 or 4 pressures and hits that he had as well. This Bills defensive front is going to drive people crazy. And with Josh Allen playing with a lead at all, he's going to be seeing that defense is going to see teams throwing the football. It spells disaster because Von Miller can pick and choose his spots when he does turn it on. And when they needed him most, he turned it on and got Kelvin Beachum. That's the story of the game. I thought for the Arizona Cardinals, I really like what they're doing with Kyler Murray, getting him out there, moving around a little bit, some quick game, but getting him off of his spot, seeing that Bulls on parade, as we call it, which is all the O-line moving right or all the O-line moving left. It's like sprint out protection, stuff like that. What we didn't see was Marvin Harrison get a ton of juice or a ton of burn. He was out there for about 55 plays. Now, I don't know what the coverage looked like. I was watching the fatties for the most part. But at the end of the day, Kyler Murray looks really good. The running game looks good for Arizona. That doesn't happen without good blocking. So credit to the Arizona Cardinals for starting off fast on the offensive line and getting guys covered up. But it all comes down to the final minutes of the game. And if you can't protect your guy when you need it, that's what happens. Von Miller's happened.
Yeah, Von Miller early on, he had like a couple reps where I was like, oh no, has Von like lost it? But it was more just, I don't think Von really cared until the lights came on. Then it was like, oh, Von's back. He was just like, he got like blown off the ball on one, trying to like wrong arm. And I'm like, oof, that was not Von I know. And then, oh yeah, he just bull rushed Kelvin Beachum right back into this lap.
Yeah, that bull rush was, we call that pressing the button. Sometimes you'll hear me say he pressed his button. Well, he pressed it. Remember the old Rock'em Sock'em robots? And if you hit it the right way, you press that button in the chest and the head pops off. That's exactly what Von does. He's going to attack edges. Then the minute you start to bail on speed or the ghost rush, boom, he converts it to power. Next thing you know, you're half a foot off the ground and your back is traveling towards your quarterback's face.
Yeah, Kelvin Beachum was a traffic cone in that one, unfortunately, a few more times than he should have been. And I wrote in my notes, you just can't be out there. They can't run offense with him at right tackle, unfortunately. My rest of my notebook here, Kyler Murray, sick full motion pump fake before the touchdown pass to Wilson. I'm a sucker for a guy doing a full motion pump fake. Big Ben used to be the GOAT at the full motion pump fake.
How does he do that with those hands?
I don't know. He actually had fairly big hands for
his size?
Yeah. Trey Benson, though, I did not love what I saw. Tentative, scared. There's a screen, wide open in space, runs directly into DeMar Hamlin that I did not love to see from a guy who's as athletic as he is, just looked tentative to really use it. I loved some of the option stuff that the Cardinals did. I counted 5 pin and pull read options, fast flow one way. Kyler Murray can go out the back door. Those are going to be big for them. Because just Kyler Murray's
pin pull. So now we got, let's say it's pin pull right, read option left. Yep. So the pin pull to the right means we got a down blocker on the exterior of the offensive line. We're going to have 1 or 2 guys kicking out there into the alley to the right. All the while, Kyler Murray running that mesh point, taking a look at that backside end, that responsibility he has. If he crashes down, Kyler Murray's out the gate. But the great thing about it is if he wants to give it, you got 3 dudes out front in the alley. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's kind of like that same action we're talking about with Kansas City. Different plays, guys, different plays. But when you get the Bulls on parade in space, that's awesome for an offense.
Watching Marv, I thought he just needs to get off the line of scrimmage a little faster because they were doing a lot of too high stuff. When that's the case, you really need to get into the route.
That soft zone.
Yeah, you need to get there because basically the pressure was getting home too quickly and Kyler's eyes were just dropping. So Marv wasn't getting into his route fast enough and Kyler wasn't even looking his way because his eyes were dropping too quickly and he was just dumping it down underneath.
Part of that scheme, part of that's the rush.
Yes. So it's twofold there. Spencer Brown, right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. He might be the Bills' best offensive lineman this year. May have surpassed Deion Dawkins. I love what they do when they run power. They pull the tackles instead of the guards.
Yep.
I think it's called dart is what I've called it over the years. That's with those tackles, I would do the same. Dennis Gardeck giving up over 100 pounds to Deion Dawkins on a pole was going about exactly how you thought it would go. Osiris Torrance, I was a little disappointed. Right guard for the Bills. He looked lost trying to pick up blitzes. Technique fine, one-on-one.
Late ads.
picking on
Late
blitzes,
ads.
stunts, that sort of thing. He just still did not quite up to speed.
That was a recurring theme throughout the NFL this week. Late ads, okay? Sometimes you see these guards standing there and they're looking in at their center and the guy runs right by their outside shoulder. That's no bueno. But that stuff gets fixed really quick. That stuff gets fixed very quickly.
And my final note, Zaven Collins, I think he might be something off the edge. He made some plays in the running game in this one. I love his body control. Obviously, was a linebacker in college. His first couple of years in the NFL, switched to edge last year. Saw some flashes. I saw even more in this one, and I think that guy very well could be the Cardinals' best defensive lineman now. A couple stats to know. There was only one completion, 20-plus yards down the field this entire game. Windy. So I think that might have been part of the problem, too, with Marvin Harrison. Kyler just not willing to take those risks in the wind. And the one completion was to Keon Coleman, and it was, according to NextGen Stats, the lowest probability completion of any play all week long.
What was your takeaway about Keon Coleman? Because I like the guy coming out. Obviously, he's not a personality hire.
Great ball skills.
Man, he's got great personality. So he does have some football skills to translate.
Great ball skills, great possession type of wide receiver. They went, I mean, you saw it. They're not going to replace Stephon Diggs with number one.
Nope.
They're replacing Stephon Diggs with every guy becoming an option. And
Khalil Shakir runs tough, too. You get him the
Exactly.
football, he can play a little pinball at that second level. We saw it yesterday. He runs bigger than he is.
Yes. So I think with Josh Allen, this offense is fine. I am worried about the defense, though. There are issues that if that pass rush isn't getting home, if they face a good offensive line, this back end will get exposed at times. It just will, flat out. All right, we're going to get to Sunday Night Football here, our final Tier 1 game.
This was hard to watch.
Right after a quick break.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Rams, Lions, OT, but the Rams cover 26-20. It was a 3.5-point spread. Game does not go over. It was 51.5 points there. So a little bit more of a defensive battle than people expected. But it was kind of lopsided along the line of scrimmage.
Both these teams are who I thought they were. And without Rob Havenstein, there was a lot of struggles on that Rams offensive line. We're going to get to that. I'm going to cover the good on the Lions first.
Yeah.
When the game came time for somebody to take over, the Detroit Lions offensive line and David Montgomery just said, give it to us. Give it to us. When they got that ball back in overtime, I just knew Matt Stafford was never going to see it again. I knew he wasn't going to see it again because, you allow these guys to stick around all game long. Jared Goff looked good. The protection looked good. I like this offensive line in Detroit. We made a lot of talks about the Detroit Lions front, left tackle all the way to the right tackle. I like all these guys. And there were times where there was imperfect, and there were times when, Glasgow got beat. I saw a couple times. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to run the football when the game requires it. And they did. David Montgomery pounding the rock in overtime. The offensive line getting in there. Dan Campbell relies on it. He trusts it. Jared Goff trusts it, obviously. He doesn't have to say, no, I want the football. I don't trust this operation. Give the ball to David Montgomery. Get out of there with a win. So for the Detroit Lions, I thought it was a great showing week one against the Rams, who actually, did a really good job rushing the passer and getting after Jared Goff. There were some wins in there. There were some real savvy moves. I like the two rookies a lot. And obviously games. We talked about rush games. That was coming into play with the Los Angeles Rams. But for the Rams offensive line, here's what I wrote. Really worried about this Rams front. Dealt with injury at right tackle and Havenstein on the sidelines. This group was without their main guy, and you could tell that from the first drive. This unit was going to be the one that dictated the game, for better or for worse. Inside moves were a plague for the Los Angeles Rams. Inside moves were a plague for the Los Angeles Rams. My old man doesn't know offensive line very much, but he always says, stay inside out. Stay inside out. Make those rushers go the long way. Matt Stafford's a veteran. He's a pro. He understands stepping up in the pocket. One thing Matt Stafford can't deal with at his age, at any age, is pressure at his feet, pressure in his face, up the middle. And when the tackles are getting beat inside, it throws off the entire play, okay? Matt Stafford's waiting for things to develop. He's got Cooper Kupp, who's 40 years old out there trying to rekindle an old flame statistically. Puka Nacua goes down. We're going to need time for these plays to develop. And the Rams didn't allow time for plays to develop, okay? Stafford had to shoot his gun very quickly throughout, often into tight coverage. It didn't allow him to get comfortable the whole night. The Stafford that you and I both know was not out there yesterday. And then down in the red area, Collinsworth, you weren't watching the broadcast because you were watching all 22 because you're a real student of the game. But I like to hear, here's a guy. So Collinsworth saying now, here's a guy, Matt Stafford, who threw the ball into a tight window. It was a bad throw. Here's what you fail to realize. His offensive tackle gets beaten in under a half a second by Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson was all over the field. And when he tasted something, I'm the kind of guy I go get a meal, and if I like it, I'm going to go get it tomorrow, and I'm going to get it the next day, and I'm going to get it the next day until my wife says, hey, there's something wrong with you. Maybe change it up. Aiden Hutchinson saw that the inside move worked, and he used it the entirety of the football game. I didn't see an adjustment from the Rams offensive line, technically, and it really worries me about this team. I know some people have this team going deep into the playoffs, making a run, but if you can't figure it out up front, you're not going to be able to figure it out the whole year.
Yeah, 2 backup tackles, though. So if they do get Noteboom back healthy, Havenstein back healthy, I feel good that
Havenstein will solve a lot of issues.
Yes.
And you'll be able to slide away. And Rob can handle his own. He's a big boy over there at right tackle. He can handle his own. He's been on this team for a while. But when you have questions at 2 positions and 2 guys out, how long are they going to be out, and what's their plan for when they're back?
Yeah, you mentioned, though, I didn't watch the game live. I just watched it on all 22 very early in the wee hours of the morning. And I could not believe, just from when I watch the all 22, usually I'm just more scheme evaluating, player evaluating, looking at stuff like that, not really get into the flow of the game because I watch one offense first, the other offense next. I was like, this game went to overtime? It just didn't make sense. And obviously a lot of that was Jared Goff not having his best performance in his own right. But this Rams offensive line was getting demolished.
Kyron Williams stepped up to the plate, though, in protection. I'm going to give a tip of the cap to old Kyron Williams. You can sit with with the O-line in the offensive meeting because you're a badass, old brother. Come on now. You're an O-lineman now, Kyron Williams.
He may have been better off at right tackle than what they're throwing out, just trying to cut block Aiden Hutchinson every single play because he was going to town. And also
Justice Hill blocked Chris Jones the other day.
Twice. Had to do it back-to-back plays in that game. But I picked Aiden to win Defense Player of the Year. I feel pretty good about that after his week 1 performance. And he also looks lighter. He looks twitchier. Maybe it was the guys he was going against, but I think he's added a little bit more twitch to his game. And he looked trimmed down, trying to play more of a pure speed game. And, it turned out good for him in week 1. Some of my other notes here from my Empty the Notebook. I thought Stafford had some nails throws down the stretch, but my gosh, they just could not run a real offense. He had to be perfect for so many plays to make up for that offensive line. Alabama, Jameson Williams is back. So glad he's getting featured in this offense. He is pure gasoline. Jared Verse walking back Taylor Decker, getting to the top of the pocket on Taylor Decker for a sack. That's a good signal for a rookie defensive lineman, even if he wasn't impactful down to down the entire game. Beating a guy like that, always a good thing.
Small wins, you can build on those. And Taylor Decker's no slouch. So a small win for this young rusher and this young Rams rush group. And there's some confidence to build on, but you got to figure out that offensive line.
Yeah, I would not want to hold the point on double teams against this Lions offensive line in overtime after playing 50-plus snaps in the first 4 quarters. That sounds awful. And you saw it down that whole drive. I didn't get to some stats to know for this one because I was kind of reeling early doors this morning. But Aiden Hutchinson and Lee McNeil played 70 and 68 snaps, respectively. We're not coming off the football field.
That's old school, bro.
Got to give a hat tip to those 2 guys. Cornerstones that defensive line weren't coming off the field.
Yeah, every play it was Aiden Hutchinson wins inside. Aiden Hutchinson wins inside. Aiden Hutchinson with a bull.
All right, let's get to our tier 2 of games. That was your tier 1. This was a borderline tier 1 game. But it really was kind of a dull one throughout. Even if it's maybe 2 potential playoff teams and it did come down to the wire, it just wasn't that exciting to watch, unfortunately. Jacksonville Jaguars and Miami, the fireworks really were pregame with Tyreek Hill news and a few plays throughout the game, but really was kind of a slog the rest of the game. I thought the Jaguars had a really good game plan for them, but they do end up losing 17-20. What did you think of this one?
Well, I think I'm very happy to see that Tyreek Hill is not only on the football field for the Miami Dolphins, but there were some questions about the health of this unit as well, the receiver room. And clearly, Tyreek Hill looks pretty healthy to me. And when he's able to hit that next gear, there's not much you can do from a schematic standpoint to contain him. You can just only hope that your guys can take good angles and gang tackle. At the end of the day, the Dolphins, they're going to be explosive as long as this guy's on the football field too, able to get the football out. in a low time. And, if I'm going to pick a team I want to go play for in the NFL, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins, because Mike McDaniel is able to scheme this thing up like nobody's business. And you don't really have to block for very long in this system.
All right, let's get to my notebook here. Roll through them. Pop in whenever if I say anything that sounds interesting to you. Jaguars starting the year with a free runner on Trevor for a sack, a pin and pull pitch right into an unblocked Jalen Phillips. Exactly how you want to start. Stay hot. Jalen Phillips, by the way, looked spry.
He's healthy. They almost threw the pitch count out the window. They almost said, buddy, just stay out there.
Not what I expected post-Achilles. He kicked Anton Harrison's butt for the most part. Anton had no clue how to deal with the high side rip move that Jalen Phillips has. Just went to it again and again. I had BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. I'm just reading my notes here.
Love a good acronym.
Just ghosting Jalen Ramsey on a post. That guy has real deal stay away speed. Kind of surprised Trevor even the speed did. Something they have not had with Trevor. And while they didn't pass in this one, and we'll get to that when we get to the stats of the week, because it was wild how much they ran the ball and didn't put the ball in Trevor's hands. After spending all this money on all these wide receivers this offseason to give them weapons, they ran the heck out of the ball. This pass game should be much improved. Brian Thomas Jr. really adds an element that they didn't have, and he looks good.
Well, they're running the football. That's gonna, it's gonna be an indicator for other teams. We got to respect the run here. And for Trevor Lawrence, that his talent is throwing the football, and with the receivers they have, and Doug Peterson's ability to spread the football field sideline to sideline, we're gonna see another iteration of this Jaguars team. Obviously, they wanted to go to Miami and get a win. It was a historically hot day in South Beach. My wife was like, I can't even go outside today. It's just too damn hot. And obviously I was flying back from New York. When I landed, it was evident that the Jags and the Dolphins were all dehydrated last night after that football game. But like I said, Trevor's going to be just fine. Doug Peterson, I have no concerns with this Jaguars team. You got to clean up the pocket for Trevor Lawrence and have him be confident. I think that's really, at the end of the day, a lot of these quarterbacks is a confidence thing. You saw Matt Stafford not trusting the offensive line. Jared Goff at times got a little shaky in the pocket. But in this game, you're going to want to take care of Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, I like that they ran the football.
Yes. All right. Calais Campbell crossing Brandon Scherf's face as a backside 3 technique on inside zone away for a tackle. He's 38 years old, people. That's
golden rule for an offensive lineman on the backside is do not get your face crossed by the 3 technique. You have to do everything in your power. So if I'm a guard, if I'm a right guard right here, and this is Calais Campbell, the play's going this way, I can't have Calais Campbell cross my face. How do I do that? I have to get vertical drive off the ball. And I love Brandon Scherf. I've loved the Sheriff for a long time. The guy's a stud. But first step, second step, boom. Get on Calais Campbell, get him up the field. He's a savvy vet. I don't know if he had a tell pre-snap or what, but sometimes these jumps can be really hard to get a hold on. How do you solve that? Move vertically. Take away their lateral movement.
I thought Scherf really struggled to sustain blocks in this game. He will be counting $25 million against the cap over the next 2 seasons, even though his contract is up after this year. Christian Kirk's counting $24 million against the cap this year and had 2 crucial third down drops in this game. The end zone view of Trevor's touchdown pass to Brian Thomas Jr. was unbelievable. I tweeted out earlier this morning. Go check it out. Top 5 throw of the weekend. I think it was probably the second best one after the Anthony Richardson bomb. Truly unbelievable anticipation from him. I thought they had the worst 4th down call of the weekend. The pin and pull that they ran to multiple unblocked defenders. That's a play that if you're Trevor Lawrence, you just have to get out of. I don't know what that was. You have to give him the freedom to do so because that play was never going to
call that the LMF. A lot of mother you-know-what's over there, and we would check out of it.
Yes.
Be like, a lot of dudes over there. Not even a real, smart guy call. Would you say a lot of dudes?
Yeah, that one should not have happened. Dolphins survived bad Tua. Tua somehow overthrew Tyreek on a vertical route. Maybe test him for PEDs.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I have not. And that's why I was like, maybe he was on something. Jaguars were not afraid to play man. They played man almost the entire game, only a handful of zone snaps. Really good hat tip to Ryan Nielsen. I thought he flustered them with that. That was a lot of the reason we saw Tua off his game. So shout outs to that first-year DC. Very good game plan. This Jags defense might be something a little bit better than I expected. Trayvon Walker, man, if he plays with urgency, he bull rushed Teron Armstead right into Tua's lap. I think bull rushed Austin Jackson for a sack. It really is it's all there. He just needs to light a fire under him. Austin Jackson, by the way, cannot believe how far he's come. 3-year, $36 million deal. It looks like a steal. He's a man possessed in the run game. Speaking of man possessed in the run game, Julian Hill, tight end, second-year guy out of Campbell. Guy might be the best run blocking tight end in the NFL.
Go Camels.
He is out for blood in the running game. You're going to see a lot of him this year in that Miami Dolphins offense because he can locate and find dudes in space. I will say Tua does deserve credit for that long, deep over to Jalen Waddle. He drew up both the safety and the corner on that side with a shoulder fake. Hat tip to him. Long, Tyreek touchdown was on Andre Sisco, if we're calling out who it was on. In the handcuffs, Ellie, was absolutely elite. Did you see it?
I have
Hands behind the back.
been so amused by a celebration than a choreographed detainment, arrest in the end zone. That was great. Tyreek is a piece of work.
I've been handcuffed on Sunday too, Tyreek. It's never.
I got handcuffed on a Saturday. It might have been a Sunday. It was like 2 a.m.
Probably was Sunday. All right, some stats to know. 26 dropbacks from Trevor Lawrence in this game. That was the second fewest of his entire career, but 5 of them came in the 2-minute drill. 3 of them were screens. That means they were basically not 18 to 25 run pass ratio. If you take those out of it, they were really run heavy. They were trying to sit on
balance. I love that. It sets up everything. Everything.
I will say though, Javon Holland forcing the fumble on Travis Etienne was like, that doesn't happen. Jaguars win that game. So that was a game changing play. That's why Javon Holland's
pissed.
That's why Holland's a top 5 safety in the NFL. And then this other one, Devon Achane, he's touched the ball in 10 plus times in 9 career games. Had 9 career games with 10 plus touches. He scored 12 touchdowns in those 9 games. Guy's pretty good. Guy knows how to find it.
It's like a track meet breaks out every single time this Dolphins team takes the field. There's so many ways they can attack you. And I talked about Mike McDaniel's ability to scheme things up. It's just makes it so easy in the protection. It makes it so easy for Tua because Tua does process really well. Mm-hmm. Tua processes really well. He's a really accurate passer of the football. He makes anticipatory throws, and he has the trust with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to be able to throw it before they even snap their head around. I do love that about the Dolphins offense.
All right, on to the Steelers at Falcons. Steelers go on the road, pull off the upset as 3.5-point dogs. The under hits in that one, 42.5 points. I wrote here, Arthur Smith has to be laughing, loaded up on run-first offensive linemen, only to watch them get their butt kicked in pass protection all game long. And he really did. Caleb McGarry, Drew Dahlman, those are run guys. Those are run blockers. Those are outside zone stretch guys that one-on-one in pass pro were getting lit up in this game.
Yeah, you want to be able to dictate the style of the fight when you have a unit like that. And we like Drew Dahlman. We talked about him in the preseason. He's a guy that I think is going to come on for this team when they start to figure out their identity offensively. They will run the football more with him to open up some things for Kirk Cousins in this passing game. But we saw some glimmers of hope for this Atlanta Falcons team. We saw Kyle Pitts in the end zone with the football in his hand, 2 hands on the football. We saw Kirk Cousins look relatively healthy. I mean, we had a lot of question marks about him coming into the football game, into this season. And for Justin Fields and the Steelers, just what a gutsy way to go down there and win the football game. Your quarterback, Russell Wilson, is in shoulder pads on the sideline, but he's out. That's like the most – I saw this meme. It was like, this is the most Russell Wilson thing ever. Got the headset and the shoulder pads on, but you're not on active roster for the day. Credit to Justin Fields, though. A lot has been talked about with this Steelers team, and Justin Fields was able to go in there and get the win. On the road, it's never easy. Week 1, Atlanta's a raucous crowd. Obviously, a really talented defense with all the guys they brought in, but the Steelers able to edge it out 18-10. How did you see this thing happening?
Yeah, let me get to my up-to-date notebook here because there was a lot to get to in this one that I thought was very interesting, very telling, and really changed my opinion of this Falcons team. But we started with this. Justin Fields fumbling the first snap after fumbling 2 in one preseason game against Houston. Let's get that figured out. Let's get that figured out, boys. Next play, he spiked one on the move. I was ready to write it off. I was ready to. But he's turned it around. And I thought, I wrote down here, let me get to the bottom. Arthur Smith put together the best game plan for Justin Fields that I've seen anyone have for his entire career. Like, what are Justin Fields' strengths? The guy can run, flat out fly, use that in the running game. Now, he's not a great, between the tackles. He doesn't have great vision, but when he's in space.
Break and contain.
Exactly. Dynamic. They use that. And what does he throw? What routes does he throw the best? Vertical, down the football field, but he has to have time. They max pro'd. They basically said, let's get just George picking some one-on-ones, and they did it, went there. It was one of the best game plans. Now, obviously, 6 field goals, never got in the end zone, but they were moving the ball pretty consistently, dictating it. So hats off to Arthur Smith. He deserves some love for a great game plan around Justin Fields' strengths. I wrote, Steelers fans will love Zach Frazier, their center, 2nd-round pick. 4th play of the game, He's getting in a shoving match with Grady Jarrett after the snap. That's how you want a rookie to be acting.
Just go get the OG and try to choke him out. That's how you earn respect in your room.
AJ Terrell, rough one. Formerly highest paid corner in the NFL. Not anymore, but yeesh. Najee Harris sent him flying on the first drive of the game. Pickens undressed him a couple times, even though I think Justin Simmons was asleep in quarters on one of their big plays, and it was on him. Pickens running backwards was amazing to me, honoring Deontay Johnson.
How long do you think it's going to be until we see this defense really gel and start to look like the defense that was on paper and we were lauding so heavily in Atlanta?
Atlanta? I don't know. I mean, I do think that was the one defense they didn't want, or one offense they didn't want to see, right? They did not want to see someone that's just going to pound it continuously at their defensive line, because that's the one area where they just don't have the bodies. They don't have the depth to keep going. And what I also wrote here was your 35th overall pick was a DT. He was a healthy scratch in this game. That's not a good sign. When that guy could have, 35th overall pick at DT, that guy should be on the football field impacting that game right there.
It's a glass eater.
So that one's a tough swallow when you're had a top 10 pick and you don't have any rookies making an impact in this game. Fields got to a check down on time versus pressure. That's what we need.
That's a good sign.
That's like to say good signal. Good signal right there from Justin Fields. Matthew Bergeron, Cam Hayward, that was not good. Second-year offensive lineman, left guard, tough sledding. Bijan, though, real deal. Feature him as much as possible. Commanders Kirk was throwing prayers under pressure. I don't know. I didn't like what I saw offensively. The passing game, one play action pass the entire game from Atlanta. When you're running that much, you got to
take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it. Exactly.
They're going to have to respect you here eventually. They're going to have to load the box. They're going to have people that can sniff the dinner in the kitchen. They start creeping up. Next thing you know, you're in the backyard.
First year OC Zach Robinson. That has to change. He's going to go back to the drawing board and say, I need to do that. I need to get this offensive line more protection going forward and not just think we can run our drop back passing game the way they did with Matt Stafford in LA. He's kind of a unicorn, his ability to deal with pressure. Kirk, a little bit more panicky. It's a little bit more, doesn't have quite the mobility either. Keanu Benton, hump move, quick pressure against Chris Lindstrom. An elite guard like that.
That's a tough matchup right there.
That's a good signal for a second-year defensive tackle. I'll say this, the TJ Watt forced fumble where they called him offsides, I don't think he was offsides. I think that was just an elite snap jump. Sometimes you just get it. If he was going against Jason Peters and Peters is jumping too at the same time, I don't think they would have flagged him.
See, I often look at this line that's superimposed on the television screen. And, obviously there's been a lot made about offensive tackles depth pre-snap. But I think half the helmets I see on defensive linemen are in the neutral zone. Half of the helmets that I see. And Chris Jones is one of them. It started with Chris Jones against the Ravens, and it went all the way through to our guy TJ Watt and all these dudes that love to crowd the football.
All right. Last note, Kirk on the botch snap where it hit Ross Dwelley as he's going in motion. Kirk calls him in motion and then immediately says stop. And it reminded me of, do you remember the Dane Cook skit where he's watches a car crash happen when he's on the sidewalk and just doesn't know how to say stop. Someone's about to someone's in the intersection is about to get hit and doesn't know what to say.
Quiet.
He's that's what Kirk was. He was just oh, stop, and it just hits him. Fumble. Obviously, TJ Watt recovered the fumble because TJ Watt had a monster of a game. Crushed Caleb McGarry the entire time. He had no answer whatsoever. Took over that one. So this Falcons, I'm worried about. That was my takeaway. I'm worried about that offensive line.
There were a few of these teams in the week one slate that people had slotted in deep playoff runs, and there are some big questions about some of these teams. Yeah. Falcons, obviously, Rams included.
All right, stats to know. Wide receivers not named George Pickens combined for 8 yards for the Steelers. Oof. 20 rushes for Najee Harris.
That's 24 feet, my man.
Good math. And only 2 for Jaylen Warren. I was surprised the carries were that lopsided considering Warren was the better back last season, but we'll see what Arthur Smith thinks.
Jaylen Warren, that's the guy I'm begging on the sideline to get him the football more. He's a guy that is really a tone setter. And when you can, sometimes as an O-lineman, there's running backs that get tackled, and then sometimes as an O-lineman, you hear a gunshot go off right inside your shoulder, and that's usually Jaylen Warren or somebody like him smacking that second level of defense. It really takes a toll on teams. You saw with David Montgomery at the end of the game in Detroit.
Yes. All right, next tier 2 matchup. Cowboys travel to Cleveland, de-pants the Browns, 33-17. They were 2.5-point dogs. Over hits in this one as well. 41.5 was that number. Deshaun. All Deshaun.
Sad.
The Saudi Arabian fan.
Sad.
Tough. He's not good. And I think the arm I think it's the arm. He's missing throws. He doesn't have the same zip. He had a go ball to Elijah Moore. They put 8 yards out of bounds. And he was not he was trying to hit him. And he just wasn't even close.
It seems dead. And you can just see it in his face when they do that solo shot of him on the bench after an interception or after a series of 2 sacks and an incompletion. He looks defeated. And these guys are checking on him. He's like, I'm good, man. I'm good. But you're not good. The Browns, it really worries me. And for the Cowboys, a lot of questions I had about the Cowboys were answered. It's that front. It's the offensive line. And obviously going against Myles Garrett, it's not going to be pretty. But if you're able to walk out of there with a lopsided win, you feel great about that. So the experience that Guyton and Beebe and the rest of that offensive line got to go through playing in Cleveland week 1 was awesome. And obviously the style of game dictated it. It was a lopsided game early. Mm-hmm. And for the Browns, they had to throw the football a lot. And for the Cowboys, they didn't really have to pass protect as much down the stretch. So I know that Guyton was really happy about that because that matchup doesn't bode well. I don't care who you are against Myles Garrett. It does not bode well.
Yeah, he had a rough one. I had a few notes on that matchup itself. Very first pass play, Zeke had to come across formation to save him.
Yep.
Garrett just straight to the edge, right around him. Blink of an eye. Zeke saved him, thankfully. Myles Garrett had another strip sack later in the game. After that strip sack, they chipped him. They rolled away. They cut blocked him. Next real time, they let him go one-on-one. Myles Garrett was about this far away, about 6 inches away from another strip sack in the exact same manner.
Get out of there alive. And as a rookie offensive lineman, you have to have the understanding that it's not going to be perfect. It's definitely not going to be perfect. And sometimes it's definitely not going to be pretty. But you got to get the job done. And they went and they did that. I give a tremendous amount of credit to that O-line in the Dallas Cowboys. Nobody can get Myles Garrett blocked one-on-one. So don't think it's an indictment on you, Tyler, that they're starting to bring all these resources on that side of the football field, because that's just the nature of the beast. And when you're playing in his home, in his game, that's the kind of things you have to do.
Cooper Beebe, though, inspiring start at center. I liked what I saw. He is strong at the top of the pocket. That guy does not go backwards versus power. I wrote Denzel Ward wants a redo. He had 2 possible picks in that first quarter. Could have been a much different game. Dropped both of them, unfortunately for him. Kills me to say this. I think Zach Martin's lost kind of a step. This isn't like, Andrew Whitworth aging gracefully and still playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level like his entire career. I think Martin's kind of, it's not the Zach Martin we know and love, unfortunately.
I think people underestimate the physical toll that's been taken on Zach Martin throughout the course of the years. And when I think about these guys, and a lot of them are Notre Dame guys, Quentin Nelson and Zach Martin, there's a style of play that Quentin Nelson uses that I don't think has the longevity that a guy like Zach Martin plays with. Zach Martin, really technically sound, but at the end of the day, you're an offensive guard. You're putting your face in there every single play. Your shoulders, your elbows, your knees, your ankles, they take a beating. And for Zach Martin, he's been doing it at the highest level for a decade now. Eventually, we're going to see some fall off. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means Zach Martin is not the Zach Martin that you and I know and can rely and set our watch on.
He was just an all-pro last year.
Yes.
He's taken a step back from that for sure. Deshaun arm, borderline Tua at this point. Maybe not that bad.
But that's disrespectful to Tua.
But it's
that's disrespectful to Tua.
In terms of strength.
Say you're sorry.
Sorry. And it's not even bad decisions. It's just bad quarterbacking. Like, he's turning down open guys. I guess that's a bad decision, but he's not throwing the ball willy-nilly to the other team. The picks that he threw weren't really necessarily was like a tip ball, and they just can't hit the broadside of the barn. His accuracy is just shot.
Yeah.
And then the one guy I'd like to note, DeMar Van Overshown, great debut, ACL tear as a rookie, starting off-ball linebacker. He was teeing off underneath, flying. He moves like a cornerback, man, that guy at off-ball linebacker. So great sign for that Cowboys team. Some stats to know. Myles Garrett's 2.51 second time to sack on that forced fumble was 0.5 seconds faster than any other sack in the entire NFL in week 1. Kind of insane stuff. Deshaun Watson went 0 of 10 on throws 15-plus yards down the football field. No one's ever done that.
Rashawn Gary, the only guy who got home quicker, and it was because Lane Johnson just didn't get out of his stance on that dead ball.
Oh, yeah. Well, we thought it was that one. I should have noted.
That's the only one that was quicker.
They thought someone had jumped. Someone did. They just didn't flag it. So Zeke, a little bit like the old Zeke, but he also had the lowest rate of carries with rushing yards over expectation of any running backs this week. Only 1 of his 10. So something to monitor going forward. But the hurdle was sweet. Hurdle was old Zeke.
He's still got some juice. And I feel like
skinnier.
that's the theme in Dallas. You know, we've got these characters that have been around him for a while. I think about Dak and I think about the O-line. These guys can still play a little bit of football, man. And if the Cowboys can go on the road and put up stats like that and have a day like they had, granted they were playing against a far inferior offense in the Cleveland Browns, they're going to be just fine. These Cowboys fans, you know, they can be annoying at times, but God, you guys got a good football team. And I really like watching Dak and these guys play.
All right, going to give you red meat here. Titans, Bears.
Victory Monday.
24-17. The Bears cover. Under hits, though. 44.5 was that total. And Caleb Williams, fourth quarter comeback in his very first NFL start.
Yeah.
He's the one.
Yeah, you know, this defense, they got a really good defense in Chicago. And I give Caleb Williams credit. He said all the right things after the game. And we all know it was not pretty from the Chicago Bears offense. It just wasn't. And it started with Caleb Williams looking a little bit, he just didn't look to be comfortable back there with that offensive line. I saw some late off-the-ball ads from the linebacker position against the Titans, and I saw pancakes on the offensive line. Linebackers were pancaking centers and guards at will. I saw defensive tackles getting home whenever they wanted to, and these for sure throw downs, and it does not breed confidence for me. It definitely doesn't breed confidence for Caleb Williams. But again, I'll end this thing how I started it. It's the defense in Chicago. It's the defense that will keep them in football games. And you see, complimentary football just works. Sometimes you're down 17. Next thing you know, you go on a 24-point run and you win a football game. So credit to the Bears for playing as a team. Credit to the fans for not booing these guys out of the stadium in the first two quarters. I've been on teams that got booed into the locker room at halftime. They didn't do that in Chicago, to my knowledge. And they went out and won the football game. So have a little bit of faith. The Bears are 1-0. Will Levis did not look great at all. And you're going to talk about Will Levis, but neither did Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. Caleb did not look great either. And there were some throws that he missed early that were kind of trademark Caleb Williams throws. I saw one where he bailed out of the pocket. He went left, and then he threw that deep comeback. It was a little bit short. It was on the first two drives probably. Those are the kind of plays where if he gets another 3 yards on that ball, it's a catch. The place goes crazy. The confidence builds. And as you saw, when he does complete passes and he feels like the offense has a little bit of momentum, he does the Mahomes thing. He's like, let's go. Get on the ball. Give me the play. I want to go because strike when the iron's hot. Caleb Williams knows that.
Yes. From my notes here, Tavondre Sweat is the craftiest nose tackle to come into the league as a rookie that I've seen. Uses his hands so well. He put a clown suit on Tevin Jenkins the first drive, back-to-back pressures right up the middle.
And that's the strength there. Tevin Jenkins is the strength of that offensive line. I mean, at the guard position, he's somebody that's been an ass kicker for them when healthy. When he's on the field, he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. So your guy comes in there, 2 plays in a row, bing, bang, boom. Next thing you know, you're in a blender as an offensive lineman. Your confidence is shot. It's week one. They got to get their confidence back.
On location at Bears camp, I said TJ Edwards and Darnell Wright would be Pro Bowlers alongside obviously Jalen Johnson for the Bears.
TJ Edwards had like 25 tackles.
I feel good about that prediction, man. He had the most tackles in the NFL in week 1, and Darnell Wright did not allow a single pressure in that game.
He's an actual Bear.
He's so – it's just – and he moves. Man, what a pick. I was hand up. I was too low on him.
One thing that was really impressive about him, and I tweeted about this during the game, is on the backside of the mid-zone game, the good offensive tackles can cut off the defensive end or the 3 technique. Mm-hmm. I saw at times Darnell Wright was able to fit that right hand in while he's cutting him off, press, and then drive vertically. So you take a lateral play and you turn it into a vertical drive to finish. That is a great sign for Chicago because, yes, you can get 3 to 4 yards on the front side, but as you and I both know, the home runs come from the cut ups. Not a cut back, it's a cut up. It's called riding the wave, and that wave is named Darnell Wright, and it looks like a damn tsunami back there.
That is the one thing I actually wrote. Latham can't make the cutoff, especially on outside zone. He's going to have to just be a pure gap scheme type of it. And they did. They ran a lot more power.
Deuce.
And so that's what he is. And he's pretty darn good at that. But you're just not going to run this guy. If you want to, he's got to go play guard, in my opinion.
Which is a good living, by the way, playing guard. I was a tackle. There's some things I couldn't do at tackles. I said, go play guard. There weren't many things I couldn't do at guard.
I wrote here, Bill Callahan isn't a miracle worker. That O-line was toast when that game was over when Dylan Radins went down. More quarterback power with Will Levis. fewer screens with thick, plodding offensive linemen. They don't have an athletic offensive line, this Titans team. Let's not get them out in space. Let's play to their strengths.
In the pen.
Exactly. I was unimpressed with Skoronski's progress, truthfully. For the 11th overall pick, that guy better be a dude in year 2. Not a liability or anything by any means, but just like still gets leany, still loses control too easily of blocks.
If you get a draft pick that high, it's supposed to be a weapon for your offense.
Yep.
It should be
supposed to be this guy right here.
It should be something that you can really rely on and say, oh, we're calling ride 35 Bob, which means inside 35, we're going inside zone left Bob. We got a little back on backer, which means we're going to have ass kicking up front. You get an opportunity for one-on-one blocks. I need to see Skoronski do better in the pass game and in the run game. I need to see a little bit of that edge. And if you're not feeling confident in the pass game, take it out on these boys in the run game because that'll make your overall confidence higher.
If you're scheming scared against Chicago because of your offensive line, you are going to scheme scared against every single team in the NFL, unfortunately, because that's not a great defensive line that you're going up against.
That's the strength of their unit.
No joke. Traylon Burks, though, encouraging. Didn't get targeted really, wasn't featured, but he had some nice routes. He might actually make an impact when Levis is actually playing quarterback. Speaking of Levis, he turned down Tyler Boyd on an out route before getting hit, and then he wants to forward flick an out route as he's going down, thinking that that's now a good decision. I don't know what the heck that was. That was the worst play I saw from any quarterback
looks
this week.
Hard, bro.
Quarterback
looks so hard.
These defenses are tough. That was one thing I wrote about rookies. You do not get any of this in college unless you maybe face Georgia. You do not get this level of complexity. You are getting static looks in college. You are seeing you game plan for them, and you know the 3 or 4 coverages that they got, that they're their bread and butter, and you can see them. The NFL is an absolute. I mean, I watched Brian Flores, what he did to Daniel Jones, and we're going to get to that one in a little bit. It was unbelievable in terms of just like there were no keys to what was going on in their coverages. You have nothing to really hang your hat on as to what's going on. You have to deduce it all on the fly, and it's just something that it takes time. And veteran quarterbacks look bad doing it. So rookies, we can have some grace for these guys. Maybe not necessarily Will Levis.
There's some groups that can just show up and beat you with a vanilla game plan.
Yeah.
We're going to make no secret about it. You got to beat us, and we think we can beat you. But then there's some groups that you have to prepare physically for a fist fight in a phone booth, and then you have to prepare for a master's exam, like the bar exam, essentially. And that's what playing against a team like the Minnesota Vikings was probably like for Daniel Jones yesterday.
Well, and also Levis, he didn't have much, but I do think he had some high-low opportunities and was really turning those down. I thought he could have been more aggressive, which I'm usually not saying about Will Levis. So
he didn't want to pull the trigger. He didn't see it.
I don't think he wanted to pull the trigger. I think he was playing a little bit scared, a little bit tighter than I would have liked to see from him until, like, obviously the wheels just completely came off at the end. Caleb, I think it was adrenaline. He was
so juiced.
The first 2 downfield balls were like 10 yards long.
Yep.
They were just not even close. And like you mentioned, things that he did in college, easy layups that he hit, were just not there. And to me, Bryce Young looked like that last year. Kind of still looks like that. We'll get to him. Trevor Lawrence looked like that year 1. It's not unheard of for a quarterback to have that. But if it's more like 6 weeks in, it shouldn't, right? Yep. 6 weeks in, he should have settled down. But that was definitely just he looked pumped up.
It doesn't get any easier next week against the Houston Texans.
No, it does not. Caleb Williams had 3rd lowest completion percentage over expectation this week. Only Daniel Jones and Bryce Young were worse.
Oh, no.
Will Levis had the 3rd lowest completion percentage despite only a 7.7 yard average depth of target. That's not a good sign.
That's half of Anthony Richardson's depth of target.
And then TJ Edwards, 15 tackles, most of any player in week 1. Sick performance. All right, last game from tier 2, and then we'll breeze through this tier 3. Las Vegas Raiders at the Chargers. It was a fun one. Raiders 10, Chargers 22. They end up covering, but this was a home game for Raiders, even though it was in Los Angeles. Antonio Pierce, they may not be a good team,
but they are a badass group.
But they're a badass group of dudes. The first drive, Antonio Pierce brought the house on every single play. He was bringing 6-man blitzes against the run, against the pass. First 3 passes, he brought 6, then 7, then 6. It was truly unbelievable. Like, that was like put your nuts on the table type of stuff.
Nightmare.
Like, you say coaches are aggressive. Antonio Pierce had no fear. I love what he did in this one. That defense deserved better because they had Justin Herbert just unable to go through his progressions, really dropping his eyes so quickly. Like it was a sweet, sweet game plan that deserved better. But the offensive side of the ball is what I question with this Raiders team. They drafted Brock Bowers. I thought they drafted him with this plan of the 2 tight end stuff.
Yep.
The Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski dynamic duo that we talked about. They basically just split time Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. They did not do it. 41 snaps for Bowers, 34 snaps for Mayer, out of a possible 60. Only overlapped a handful of times. And then you only scored 10 points.
I was anticipating a ton of 12, maybe some 13 personnel, just getting all the bigs on the field, mash it up. It's what Luke Getsy's done historically. The Raiders 28th in the run last year, and Luke Getsy, you look at all the units he's been a part of in the last half decade, they're all in the top 5 in the running game. All of them. So I think that's where my question is, why aren't we going to see more of this 2 tight end sets? And we can see them break out. You get them in the backfield, you get them in line, you can line up Brock in the slot, anywhere. But we didn't see a ton of Mayer and Bowers together. That's concerning for me.
All right, some more notes here. Have not seen Joey Bosa look like that in 3 years. Best game in some time. Unique movement patterns for an edge, but man, he went off. Khalil Mack had a good game as well. Something about Jim Harbaugh front sevens, man. He gets the best out of those guys. Zion Johnson, left guard, rough day at the office. Adam Butler ate his lunch. I love how the Raiders, their defensive line, Antonio Pierce just lets them free range. I think those guys don't have gap control responsibilities. From watching it back, I was like, I am not sure.
Just go get them.
I think it is. I truly do. Not like some teams will let your stars do it, but he had Adam Butler just like crossing faces of guards, and it's like, that's Adam Butler.
And it's really it's disadvantageous playing against a guy like Herbert who can put his foot in the ground and take off. You would think they would have a little bit more rush integrity.
But they also were bringing a lot.
Yes.
So that helps.
Containment, rush, and blitzes.
Robert Spillane, off-ball linebacker for the Raiders, one of the most underappreciated players in the league. Former career special teamer with the Steelers. That guy plays with his hair on fire. One of the most fun players to watch in the NFL. And then Joe Alt, that dude was as advertised.
Stud.
I counted 9 reps against Crosby.
Stud.
Only 2 of them I would even come close to considering losses, and they weren't even they were borderline. So
they
Joe
just
Alt,
weren't wins.
Exactly. So to be flipping sides, rookie, Max Crosby, first go around.
Yeah, he was yawning out there. I mean, I just think we're going to see Joe Alt look boring for the next 15 years. It's going to be boring, but great. A lot like our guy, Joe Thomas in Cleveland.
Yeah. That's kind of what it looked like. That's like early career guy that you just know is going to be a dude. All right, a couple stats to know. Chargers running backs, 7.7 yards per carry in this one. 3rd highest mark of Justin Herbert's career. I'm sure he's going to love that. And then J.K. Dobbins had the 2 runs, 1 and 2 with the most rushing yards over expectation. Great to see him back healthy. That guy has been banged up his entire career after being a second rounder. You put on a show. Put on a show. All right, so tier 3. The games that, they just weren't all that great in terms of watchability, but we still have some takes. We're going to start with the Denver Broncos traveling to the Seattle Seahawks, where it was
a dumpster fire of a first half.
It was a tough one. It was a tough one to watch. Both offenses had a rough go of it, but Bo Nix especially had a rough go of it. Turned into what everyone thought Bo Nix was in terms of the check down.
Throw the ball down the field.
But the receivers also couldn't get open. I mean, the Seahawks secondary, what he faced, Mike McDowell in that secondary.
Yep.
That was a house.
Yeah, and also I just think about the pressure package that Mike McDonald comes from. He comes from that Rex Ryan tree where it's simulated pressures. Guys, I may see a defensive lineman in front of me. At the snap, the D lineman drops. Now my eyes are on him, and then this guy comes and blitzes, and you're on different levels. And Bo Nix, understanding of that, I think he might have been seeing some ghosts early on with this pressure package from Mike or Coach McDonald. And you go on the road in Seattle, and it's absolutely impossible to play offensive line in Seattle.
Yeah. So it was tough sledding. I'm not taking any big takeaways, but I thought a couple things he did well. Throw with anticipation. He also avoided sacks really well, even though he was under pretty heavy heat. But, man, 2 throws were just disasters that he wants back. The corner pick, the near pick, and then the Tariq Woolen one's just, he's going to have to learn that's NFL speed. Tariq Woolen was flying across the field. Didn't think he could make it. Tariq Woolen did because, he's one of the fastest men in the NFL.
I think we can get to the last 3 tier 3 games after a quick break here. It's been fun so far, Mike.
Yes, sir. Pats, Bengals go into Cincy, the jungle, pull off the upset as the biggest dog of the weekend, 16-10. That shows you the parity that there is around the NFL, but also no T. Higgins. Jamar Chase, very first time Joe Burrow looked his way. Deep comeback. Jamar's getting open. Burrow pulls it down, unwilling to throw it. Weren't on the same page timing-wise. He gets sacked. He fumbles. If Jamar Chase is there all camp, does he do it? Does he pull that back? Does he? I don't know.
I just don't know. I don't know how much of it is Joe Burrow coming back from injury. I don't know how much of it is the hold in from Jamar Chase, but this is concerning. I mean, we talked about this Patriots team being so untalented that they're not even going to put their first round quarterback in the football game. Jacoby Brissett goes out, wins the game on the road. We know the Bengals start slow, but I just think it's a big tip of the cap game to this Patriots, particularly their offensive line, who were disrespected by me and Mike and all of our colleagues and all the people at all the networks. Credit to Coach Mayo, credit to that offensive line, and Jacoby Brissett for getting a victory Monday for Patriots fans.
Well, here's the thing. The Bengals, I think, watching this D-line, they're going to get run on. The DJ Reader ain't walking through that door. Sheldon Rankins ain't holding up the double teams. They're going to have issues. And Dax Hill's not a good tackler. Even if you look good in coverage, he's not a good tackler on the edge. And Geno Stone is not a run player at safety. I would have subbed out Geno Stone, put in Jordan Battle for that one. After I saw how it was going early on, you just needed the help. Needed the horses in run support. Obviously didn't do that, and it turned out poorly for him. A couple other notes. Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, studs. Now, Gonzalez going against Jamar Chase, maybe he wasn't 100% whatever, but he put the brakes to Jamar Chase on a number of plays that were impressive. And Marcus Jones is flying around the football field. This Patriots secondary is a top 3 secondary in the NFL. In my opinion, they had Joe Burrow looking like Bryce Young with just like underneath pass or just trying to break the pocket. Tough. And then the other biggest note, Trent Brown. His weight is up. He looks.
I think there are some guys that just are not on the bus in terms of like we're all on the bus about
that's what it seems
limit,
like.
and Trent just does not seem to care. He's never cared, by the way.
But like he's also never cared.
Doesn't care now,
and he looks mid 400s.
It looks like the 1990s out there with those tackles that are 400 pounds. And
he had Josh Uche. He's like 240 bull rush. I mean, he just fell on his butt, just like toppled. Like he was sitting on a chair and the chair wasn't there, sort of thing. And it was just like, that's not a good signal. Like that he needs.
There were years when I was overweight playing, and I never felt as strong as I did when I was lighter. When I was lighter, I felt like I could have more explosion and more pop. Obviously, you're in better shape when you're lighter. So for Trent and the Bengals, they're going to want to see him get down a little bit.
If this wasn't every year for the Bengals, they'd be panicking. But like, I do think there's some cultural issues at play here with that receiving core.
And starting slow every year.
And just a late hamstring from T. Higgins, like, could he have gone if he like wasn't in a contract year with this thing? Who knows? Do you
think there's some agent text messages in the
That's what I'm
room?
saying. Yeah. Like, is there like a little undercurrent? We'll see. We'll see how things go. Keon White, the last shout out. Patriots defensive lineman, had some great reps. Real deal power. Nice to see from him. All right. Next to the tier 3 games here. Rookie Jaden Daniels, Commanders, goes to Tampa Bay. Kind of a laugher, 37-20. Bucs offense looks like an absolute house. But
same old.
My biggest takeaway with this Commanders team, though, this is not a situation for success. It just flat out isn't. I think we knew it going in.
Protection.
But even more so after this first game. The Bucs aren't a house of a defense by any means, but they had no answers.
Yeah, when the Commanders have teams on their heels, it's when they have all their personnel bunched in there and they know that Jaden Daniels is going to get the football and either run with it or throw with it. But when you have to spread it out and play a modern offense, you need to protect the passer, and they were not able to do that effectively, and that's going to be unfortunate. I think the story of the Washington Commanders all year, how can Jaden Daniels survive the onslaught? And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's business as usual. Baker Mayfield looks to be rowdy. He's rocking and rolling, hitting linebackers on the second level, making all the throws you'd want a quarterback to make. I throw him into that list of dudes I want to play for, Baker Mayfield.
I wrote in my notes, Baker is the QB who was more athletic than people in high school and never changed his play style when that stopped being the case.
I like that.
But he wants to make plays.
It's like when you go to the park and watch somebody playing pickup football and you say, that guy should be in the NFL. That's how Baker plays. He plays like he's at a park.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, I worry about him developing bad habits because if you watched him throughout his career, Arizona State to LSU, he kind of, early in his career, he was like a one-read go. He was like a real quick to scramble guy. That kind of, by the last year at LSU, he had gotten more comfortable with hanging in there and really attacking when things weren't perfect in the pocket. That was not the case week one. Obviously, Todd Bowles, tough DC to face. I think he got blitzed more than any quarterback week one from what I saw.
That's what Bowles likes to do.
It's Todd Bowles. But a lot of times, I think I counted 3 times where clean pocket, first read wasn't there, and just felt the ghost. He just gone. And I was so dynamic, right? Like, it's not something you want to take away from his game by any means. But as skinny as he is, as much as he hasn't been able to protect himself, and he took some shots in this one, that's not a play style built to last in the NFL. That's just not. I mean, we just highlighted how Lamar had, I think, 9 scrambles. That was his career high. I think Jaden had 8 in this game.
Not by choice.
But I'm saying some of them were by choice that he's going to have.
Yeah, I'm saying it was an ideal situation that forces you to tuck that thing and take off. I mean, I want Jaden Daniels to be able to run to throw. And obviously, we're going to have built-in runs for Jaden Daniels and guys like Lamar Jackson. But it's the running to throw, changing the launch point. That's where you get guys open in the scramble drill instead of running for your life.
Running for running. Yep. And my last note, expect more of Bucky Irving going forward. So much more decisive and precise with his run pacing than, gosh, why am I blanking on the starting running back's name there? Rashad White. So I think you'll see a split going forward, even if Bucky Irving is, tiny. So worth noting there. All right, Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants. This one was my coaching game all of the week because, well, Brian Flores put the absolute boots to Daniel Jones. I mean, when you sign a quarterback to the deal he did, and he's thrown now more picks than touchdown passes since he signed that, more touchdown passes to the other team, in fact. Because as I predicted on last week's show, he threw the very first pick 6 of the season against this defense. That's just I don't know how.
Jeff Ratcliffe yesterday said that the touchdown was going to be Daniel Jones throwing it to the other team. So this is good. Jeff Ratcliffe, smart guy.
On the same page. But, man, like I said, Flores now, what he has at his disposal with those linebackers, Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman, those guys are like wind-up toys playing linebacker. You send them in a direction, and they're just jitter. They're fun, man. Like, he has a nightmare of a defense to match up against, the game plan for. And you just had Daniel Jones lost. Like, as lost as the rookies that we're talking about, in terms of not being able to see stuff consistently. And so, this Giants team, I think we all kind of predicted that this could get ugly.
I like the jerseys.
Oh, I hated the jerseys.
I liked the jerseys.
I hated them because I couldn't tell anyone's number.
They kind of reminded me a little bit like the replacements. It's like a Shane Falco get up. But we didn't see Shane Falco out there. We saw Dane Falco out there.
Well, we saw Quicksand. What was it? Sugar Bowl, Shane Falco.
Sugar Bowl, Shane Falco. You lost me a lot of money, Shane.
From the Vikings perspective, though, Darnold, kind of. I mean, he had a lot of layups, a lot of throws, and he did throw a pick, but
that's a feel no pressure type of game. You can see the kind of game that Brian Flores is presenting to Daniel Jones and the Giants offense, and they were inept. And for Sam Darnold, there's no pressure. I mean, you got great tackles. You got great players all around you. Obviously, Justin Jefferson as well. Justin Jefferson, great contested body-on-body catch down there at the low red. That's not the kind of stuff that when I close my eyes and picture Jefferson, I'm picturing him just putting the gas on.
Gazelling in space.
But he can absolutely get in there and play a little body check football and catch some balls in low red. That's going to be a lot of fun for Sam Darnold.
A few other notes. Giants' offensive line is not built to run the football. They just aren't. Dexter Lawrence is going to have a Hall of Fame-worthy Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders-esque season. First play of the game, sack. Or first pass of the game, sack. Second pass of the game, pressure, splitting a double team. Third, pressure that forced a scramble. And if Darnold would have held the ball, it would have been a sack. It was unbelievable. It was truly, that guy is a different level of player than anyone else on the football field.
I have so much respect for great players on bad teams.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a travesty. Some of these guys, they go out there and they play Hall of Fame level football and they can't get wins.
And the last one, Aaron Jones is such an upgrade for this Vikings offense. That's the thing that maybe gets me the most excited about this Vikings team and hurts me the most as a Packers fan to watch. One last game, and we really don't have to spend long, but Panthers, Saints, beat down of the week.
Buddy, what happened?
10 points for the Carolina Panthers, 47 for the New Orleans Saints. It was over by halftime first pass of the season for Bryce Young, pick, completely just way too early in his progression, throwing it way ahead of Deontay Johnson. No clue what that was. Looked the exact same as he did as a rookie. And my biggest takeaway from this weekend, for going to something that changed my mind, because I had high hopes for Bryce Young. I don't think it's happening. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think they have to look elsewhere. They're going to have to look elsewhere. Now, it's a long season.
How does that look? What happens? Where do you go from here?
Well, obviously, you go to the number 1 overall pick, it's going to seem, on this trajectory, if you're getting your butt kicked down
the Bears get their second
badly. So the Bears will have a nice little pick from them. But I don't know, man. I mean, the things that made him look good in college, okay, kind of what we were talking about with Caleb Williams, he does not do. He is not accurate on the move, flat out missing throws left and right on the move. That was his bread and butter. And it was just bad in this one.
So something that changed my mind?
Something that
changed my mind is the Chicago Bears are not going to have the Chicago Bears are not going to have success offensively if they don't clean up the inside of that pocket. Yeah. It was ugly at times yesterday. And granted, we talked about the stars on that Tennessee defense and that front with Sweat and Simmons, but this is the NFL. All these guys get paid. Every week you're going to be playing against somebody that was a world beater at one point in their career. So we've got to figure out how to get the middle of the pocket cleaned up, because I cannot see all the grass stains on the back of those Bears jerseys all year and seeing the Bears have success.
Yeah, that one surprised me. I thought, Jeffrey Simmons, I thought maybe, he'll be an issue. I didn't see Javondre Sweat kind of going to town the way he did.
Animal.
And a lot of other guys. What was something that solidified your opinion after this week of games?
Something that solidified my opinion is that the Kansas City Chiefs got even better this year.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs, the best team in the world, got even better at football. And I look at the defense, and I look at the way that Chris Jones leads that group in the front seven. And obviously we talked about their linebacking core that does a really good job. And Spags has so many multiple things that he can show offenses. But at the end of the day, it's vanilla. It's, can you block our front four? Can you block Chris Jones? And when you do slide 2 or 3 guys to Chris Jones, can you win? And yes, we've seen it with Turk winning on the other side, and with Karlaftis obviously able to get home in double-digit pace. And then I haven't even talked about the offense. Xavier Worthy's first touch was a touchdown. Creed Humphrey still a dominant weapon.
Oh, I didn't mention this about Creed Humphrey,
in the screen game.
Last play of the game, offensively, he got rolled up on his knee. I haven't heard anything from it, but he was down holding it for a while.
So Creed Humphrey, you would have to blow his leg off.
Well, I know he's playing, but I'm just saying something to monitor.
Hey, look, none of these guys are healthy, as you know. Nobody's ever healthy. But for the Chiefs, they got better. It remains to be seen whether or not Creed Humphrey's going to be healthy. But at the end of the day, it is business as usual in Kansas City. That's what solidified my opinion.
Our locks of the week this week, I had Tampa Bay -3.5, Chargers -3, Caleb Williams under 245.5.
Yep.
Bang, bang, bang.
What were my locks?
You had Detroit -3.5.
Okay, great. Thank you, David Montgomery.
Atlanta -3.5.
Hey.
Jeffrey Simmons over 0.5 sacks. We'll get him next week. We'll get him on Thursday. That's it. That's your review of all the games from the NFL this week. We'll be reviewing some Monday Night Football tomorrow, as well as having Pete Briscoe on to break down his power rankings.
We've got to have him back.
Have our Goldilocks segment. Have some awards to give out for the week that was. Until next time, keep pushing.